As Transformers fans, I think we can all pretty much agree that one of the coolest scenes in the history of the franchise is from the good old '86 movie, where Unicron takes a bunch of half-scrapped Decepticons and reformats them into a deadly new trio of villains. Those guys had some absolutely top-tier designs, but their toys haven't always really reflected that. The G1 toys, while fine in their own right, don't really look anything like the on-screen characters. Especially Galvatron. Galvatron in particular has had a really bumpy road over the years. His Universe toy is infamously horrible, and his Titans Return toy, while acceptable, is riddled with weird compromises and design decisions that are just baffling. But now, or last year, we have all three of them coming correct and looking correct for the first time in the franchise history. So let's all bask in the glory of this exemplary and unholy trinity. Okay, I've got to start with an asterisk right off the bat, because this technically is not Scourge, but one of his army of identical clones. But come on, it's the exact same toy. I'm not going to pay triple the price for a slightly dingier shade of blue plastic and the name on a box which is getting immediately slam dunked into the garbage can. Onto the actual toy, and boy is it a beauty. It's never been totally clear to me how this space tombstone would actually be able to fly, but it sure does look cool. Boy, do those colors pop. The on-screen sweeps might have been a shade or two darker in terms of their blue, but I've never been a big fan of slavish accuracy to the cartoon if it makes the toy actually look worse. His trio of thrusters can actually accommodate fire blasts, which actually makes him look even faster somehow. If you like, you can even pop his head out for a little peekaboo action. I would never actually choose to do this, but it doesn't compromise the toy in any way, so I'm not going to complain about it. Not a particularly complex transformation, but a satisfying one. The wings can be on the persnickety and clashy side, but if you exercise a little bit of patience and caution, they'll cooperate. He looks spot on compared to his cartoon model. His mustachioed visage is just about perfect, except that they didn't paint the sides of the mustache, so it looks kind of weird if he's looking to the side. That really wouldn't have cost him that much extra to paint it. I love that they went through the trouble of painting his nails. I always thought those things looked like they could give one mean scratch, but I don't think Scourge or any of the sweeps tried it at any point. Seems like a waste opportunity. Articulation is definitely up to the high modern standard. His head and hands in particular are very expressive. His wings seem like they could get in the way, but just give them a little flap and they won't cause any problems. His gun's a little on the nondescript side, but that is what it looks like. Of course, he's got copious ports for Fire Blast. And he's got many holes that he can use to interact with the combat system from the rest of the War for Cybertron trilogy, even though he's technically a Studio Series toy. This has to be the overall best Scourge or Sweeps toy ever made, which is only befitting of Galvatron's Huntsman. Let's go! Out of all the high-concept sci-fi space modes from Season 3 and onwards, Cyclonus has to be my favorite. Man, he really is pointy. You could put your eye out on that needle node. I don't even really know what to say. It's so self-evidently awesome. The only tiny complaint I could make is that these boosters are slightly weirdly positioned, but that is truly the nittiest of picks. His color scheme is banging. Purple has to be one of my favorite colors for Decepticons, and this hue is particularly pleasing to the eye. Unlike Scourge, he's got an actual cockpit. And that transparent orange complements the violet beautifully. Wow, that transformation is one of the best the War for Cybertron trilogy has to offer, and that's saying something. Seriously, this is some straight up masterpiece level engineering. The way the cockpit opens and folds into itself before going into the torso is a stroke of genius. The result is a beautifully sleek and absolutely kibble-less robot mode. It's hard to imagine this guy getting any better. He even has light piping. They did not have to make it so those wings fold around the back and kind of compress. They look just fine fully extended, but it's nice they went the extra mile. I do have one minor complaint though. It's kind of hard to decide where to position these knees. There's no real locking point, so just position them to your preference. His articulation is, again, as good as you could really want. His ankle tilts in particular are very stable, and he has not just a head, but also neck joint. Plenty of opportunity for Fire Blast fun. His nice silver gun looks great no matter which blast effect you decide to go with. Cyclonus was a lot of people's bot of the year for 2021, and it's easy to see why. Transformers toys don't get much better than this. Looks awesome in both modes, great transformation, perfect articulation, and a complement of play features. He probably would have been my pick too, if not for. This guy. Before we get started, I have a bit of a confession to make. I've never particularly cared for the design of Galvatron's alt mode. As it looked on screen, no toy has ever come close to capturing the dynamism of its animation counterpart. Until now, that is. Notes to all other Galvatrons, this is how it's done. It's kind of impossible to argue that this isn't both a big upgrade in functionality and coolness compared to Megatron's original alt mode. He looks like he could be a threat in his own right. No Trigger Man needed. Unless you needed someone to like push him around like some sort of medieval artillery weapon. That's right, Scourge and Cyclonus! Push! Look at that transparent gun barrel. It doesn't get more eye-catching than this. They could have left it all one color, but the little painted gradient orange on the side is very welcome. Fire blasts look completely awesome coming out of this thing. The bigger, the better, in my opinion. Imagine getting hit by this? You'd be vaporized like a civilian in Mars Attacks. This is one of the rare Transformer alt modes that just makes a cool toy in its own right. When it comes to battlefield functionality, which would you rather have? A massive cannon or some car? I thought the last transformation was great. This is the good stuff right here. It basically just explodes apart before sucking himself back together in this beautiful robot mode. Being a leader class toy instead of a Voyager, he's a head taller than his two flunkies, and beastly enough to go toe-to-toe with Ultra Magnus any day of the week. While the colors were great in his alt mode, they really come together in his robot mode. That purple just pops, and while I'm usually not a big fan of gray, it complements the purple perfectly. They did decide to bring back the battle damage from early in the War for Cybertron trilogy just for this one guy. Kind of a weird decision, but I was one of the few people who actually liked the battle damage, so not complaining. Articulation is next level. He even has double elbows to give him that little touch of expressiveness. He comes with some pretty nice accessories. A pair of guns shaped like his ships from the movie, and a niced out matrix of leadership around a chain if he's feeling drippy. What do you want me to say? He's just an awesome toy of an awesome character that looks and feels awesome. I guess that just about wraps it up. I mean, when it comes to these guys, who could top Galvatron? That's right, it's Unicron. I couldn't talk about these three without talking about their maker, because the Chaos Bringer demanded it and I'm in no position to turn him down. This guy from the Armada toy line in the early 2000s is actually the first toy Unicron ever got, which is crazy to me. How could they not capitalize on an idea as awesome as a planet that eats other planets and is a Transformer? He's an acceptable globe. His front end definitely looks better than his back, but considering this toy is from 20 years ago, I think the engineering gets a pass from him. He has a beautiful complement of plate features too. His big chompy mouth is a time and a half, and he has a veritable solar system of minicom ports. Sadly, I only have little dead end here, who came with Unicron. He slots in nicely into this little crater to make a extra firepower mode. Color-wise, he's a bit on the odd side. There's not really much orange to be seen in this mode, and while the transparent purple is cool, I would have preferred it if he was a little bit more close to the G1 color scheme. Oh, I need a breather. While he isn't as big as modern-day Titans like Fort Max and Trypticon, he's still a hefty contender. This robot mode is about exactly what you'd expect, with light-up features and hidden compartments galore. His hefty sculpted detail is very reminiscent of a modern-day Generations figure. It's interesting how a toy line that's so focused on G1 has so much of the Unicron trilogy in its DNA. Posability was a standout for the era. No real joint is missing, especially not his hands, which have individually articulated fingers. Like most bots of his size from the Unicron trilogy, he has a wealth of play features. 3 firing Minicon activated missiles on each calf, and a massive chest missile that's so loud I jumped out of my seat the first time I used it. I'm not too man to admit, the first time this thing made its maiden flight, I peed myself a little. See what I mean? And that's Unicron, just a massive toy with a massive amount of fun to offer, and he makes a great companion piece to those other 3 guys. And